Hello, hello! This is Wendy Werneth, author of Veggie Planet, Uncover the Vegan Treasures Hiding in Your Favorite World Cuisines. And if you are watching this live, then that means that you are part of my inner circle, an exclusive group of people. You either pre-ordered a copy of Veggie Planet before it was officially released, or you're part of the Veggie Planet street team, which means that you hopefully read the book in advance, gave some feedback to me while I was still writing and editing the book, and then left a review of the book either on Amazon or on Goodreads. So thank you in either case, whichever group of those you fall into, thank you so, so much. And if you haven't, or we do have someone watching. All right, so people are starting to trickle in here. If you could just type in a message and let me know that it's working and that you can hear me, that would be great. And then I can start answering questions if you like. So yeah, you are either, if you're here live, that means that you are either someone who pre-ordered Veggie Planet or someone who was part of the Veggie Planet street team. And in either case, I just want to thank you so much for all of your help and your support. Hopefully you enjoyed the book. Hopefully you've read it by now. And if you haven't reviewed it yet, then that would be awesome if you could do that either on Amazon or on Goodreads.com if you're part of that social media network, which is for readers of books and lovers of books. And yes, I just really appreciate your support. The reviews really, really do help. It helps more people see the book and just get more exposure and for me to find more readers. So that would be awesome if you could review if you haven't already. So what I'm going to do today is I have received some questions in advance already, either from email or from Goodreads, because I'm also answering questions on my Goodreads author profile. So you can also go there and type in a question and I will answer it for you. So I'm going to answer some of those that I've received today, but you are free to go ahead and ask anything that you want to right now while we are live. So you can just type it into the chat box. Hopefully I will see it. This is only the second time that I've done one of these live broadcasts, so still kind of figuring out everything as we go along. Hopefully we don't have too many technical glitches today and we'll be able to chat and I can answer your questions about Veggie Planet. So let's go ahead and get started. The first question that I have is, where did you get the idea for Veggie Planet? Well, it really came from hanging out mostly in online forums, lots of Facebook groups in particular, where vegan travelers were talking about their experiences. And I heard lots of vastly different experiences from people who had been to the same places, who had traveled in the same destinations. So I would hear some people saying, oh yes, Greece was amazing and there was so much vegan food there and I just enjoyed all these wonderful dishes. And then I would find other people saying Greece was horrible and no one understood what veganism was and I couldn't find anything to eat and I couldn't find any vegan restaurants and it was just terrible. And I noticed this huge discrepancy in people's experiences, and I understood at least partially why that was happening, just based on my own experience and the own research that I had done. And so my aim with Veggie Planet was and is to show people that even if a place doesn't look at first glance like it's going to be veggie friendly, even if you don't see lots of vegan restaurants around, you don't see the word vegan, people don't necessarily understand the word vegan when you say it to them, that doesn't mean that it's not a vegan friendly cuisine. And in fact, many, if not most, of the traditional cuisines around the world are naturally very plant-based. And that includes the most famous cuisines and the most popular cuisines and the ones that are probably your favorites that you know and love very well. But you just might not know all the dishes that they have to offer, and you might not realize just how many vegan dishes or easily veganizable dishes are included in that cuisine. So that was why I wrote Veggie Planet, because I saw that many people were struggling when they were traveling, and even though they were in places where there is a huge abundance of vegan dishes, it just wasn't, they weren't finding it because they didn't have the knowledge or the skills, or hadn't done the research and just weren't aware of how they could get access to this wonderful vegan food that was available to them. So yeah, I started out writing the book specifically with travelers in mind. And then as I wrote it, I realized this is not only useful for people who are traveling internationally. First of all, it's also useful for people who are traveling domestically and just going to another city or town or state in the country where they live. And even for people who are just eating out, even if it's just in their own hometown. Because these cuisines, like I said, I focused on the most popular, the most famous cuisines. And of course, they're not available only in the country where they originated. There are now restaurants all over the world that are serving these cuisines. So, for example, Chinese is the very first cuisine that I discuss in Veggie Planet. And we all know that you don't have to go to China to taste Chinese cuisine. You can find a Chinese restaurant probably not very far from where you are right now. And just about everywhere you go, you're going to come across a Chinese restaurant. So I wanted people to know what they could look for in a Chinese restaurant, what kind of dishes they could ask for, what kind of questions they might want to ask about whether to find out whether or not the dish was vegan or could be adapted. And so, yeah, I quickly realized that Veggie Planet was not just for travelers, that it was for anyone who enjoys eating out, and really anyone who enjoys learning about different cultures and different cuisines. Because I have had people tell me, even though I don't necessarily eat out all the time and I don't really like traveling, I love this book and I've learned so much from this book, because I do go into quite a bit of detail about the cultural background and the historical and geographic and religious reasons why these cuisines are particularly vegan friendly. So yeah, I think that answers that first question. Basically, my inspiration for, or where I got the idea for writing Veggie Planet was because I saw so many people who were struggling to find vegan options when they were traveling or eating out. And I wanted to show people that it doesn't have to be that way, that it doesn't have to be a struggle, and that vegan food is out there, it's everywhere, and it's just a matter of knowing where to look and knowing what to look for and how to find it. All right, so question number 1, let's move on to the next one. How do you get inspired to write? And so that kind of ties in a little bit with how did you get the idea, or where did you get the idea for Veggie Planet? But just speaking more generally, because yes, Veggie Planet is my first full-length book, but, well, I've done a lot of other writing in other mediums. You might know that I've been writing a blog called The Nomadic Vegan for the past 2.5 years or so, and have been steadily putting out content there. And I have a smaller ebook that's available for free that you can download on the Happy Cow website. It's a collaboration I did with Happy Cow called 9 Steps for Easy Vegan Travel. And so now that I have Veggie Planet out in the world, I do have plans for many more books. Hopefully, I have lots and lots of book ideas in my head, some of which I've already gotten down on paper partially. So yeah, I have lots of inspiration to write, and yeah, writer's block has not really been an issue for me at all. It's been the opposite problem of just having so many ideas and so many things that I want to share, and having to prioritize a little bit and decide which one I'm going to do first and which one is going to reach the most people and help the most people. Basically is how I go about deciding which one to do first. So yeah, the inspiration just comes from for my passion about veganism and about sparing as many animals as possible from unnecessary suffering, and also helping humans to improve their quality of life, to improve their health, to help to lower their impact on the environment, And yeah, I've been vegan for not that long, really. It's still not quite 3 years now. But when I became vegan, it completely changed my life in so many wonderful ways. And my inspiration is this, deep desire to share this lifestyle with other people, because I know how much it has helped me, how much wonderful things it has brought into my life. And I want other people to be able to experience that. And of course, I want those who are suffering from animal agriculture, including both human and non-human animals, I don't want them to suffer anymore. So that is the inspiration behind everything that I do, whether it's blogging or videos, or writing books, which is what I'm starting to focus on right now. Yeah, that is the inspiration. And then I guess I could go into a little bit more detail about why I'm inspired to write about travel in particular, and about different international cuisines around the world. And that's simply because travel is also a big passion of mine. I would say that veganism and travel are now my two main passions. Veganism is a much more recent thing. Like I said, I only became vegan not quite 3 years ago, whereas I've been traveling the world for the past 18 years now. And I am originally from the US, but I left the United States in 1999. So yeah, it has been a little more than 18 years. And ever since then, I've been living and working and studying and traveling in all different places. I've now visited 100 countries. So Malta was my 100th country, which I visited earlier this year in March and April. And so, yeah, travel is a huge passion of mine, like I said. And when I became vegan, I immediately wanted to do more than just change my own diet. I wanted to do something more for this movement, and to help others to make the same lifestyle change. But I was just starting out. I was a brand new vegan myself. And so I wasn't really in a position at that time to give people nutritional advice, or, to help them with other aspects of going vegan. But I knew, well, one thing that I could do was to share my own experiences traveling as a vegan, because that was something that I was doing from day one. I actually became vegan while traveling in Greece, and that's another story that I can share sometime if you want, if you haven't heard it before. But yeah, I write about travel because that is my passion, and also because I really saw a void there. Because when I wanted to become vegan, I had a pretty slow transition. It took me several months to finally make the full transition. And one of the biggest reasons for that was because I was afraid that going vegan was going to ruin travel. I didn't even know if it would be possible to be vegan in some of the places where I had already been, and also some of the places where I still wanted to go. And I started, feverishly Googling and doing as much research as I could to try to figure out what would travel as a vegan look like. And I found a little bit out there, but not that much. And a lot of what I did find did not reassure me at all. It actually made it sound like vegan travel was going to be really difficult and, a lot of hassle. And it was only through my personal experience, when I finally decided to give it a try anyway, that I discovered, no, it actually has made my travels even better and made them much more fulfilling and a lot more fun in a lot of ways. And so that was the message that I wanted to share with other people who I knew probably had the same fears and the same misconceptions as I did about what vegan travel is like. And so that is my inspiration for writing, in particular, about living and traveling as a vegan. So thank you for that question. And you can put your own questions into the chat box anytime. I'm still hoping that I will see them. I'm not exactly sure where they're going to pop up. Let's see. Okay, yeah, I think I should be able to see them. So if you want to put a question into the chat box, then go right ahead. And otherwise, I will just continue to answer the questions that people have already sent me beforehand. So let's see. The next one of those is, what's the best thing about being a writer? That's a good question, and I'm still kind of getting used to the idea of myself being a writer, or in particular an author, right? Because I have been writing for a while now, on the blog mostly, but that's still a bit different from being a published author of a full-fledged book. And it is a pretty great feeling, I have to say. This is a project that I've been working on for so long now, and it's taken a lot longer than I thought it would, as everything tends to do. But it is a wonderful feeling to have it finally all come together. I've learned so much through the process of publishing Veggie Planet. And, those are lessons learned that I will be able to take forward and apply to the next book and the next book. And so, yeah, it is a great feeling, and the best thing about being a writer to me is just being able to share my thoughts and my feelings with other people, with people who I've never met before from all over the world. And I do have a message to share that I am very passionate about, and I am confident, I know 100% that this is why I'm here on this earth. This is what I am here to do. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. And there's no better feeling than that, than knowing that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing and that you're fulfilling your purpose in life. And for me, writing about the vegan lifestyle is my purpose, or sharing that message in any way that I can. But for right now, that is mainly focused on writing. So yeah, that's the best part for me. All right, so the next question, what's your advice for aspiring writers? That's a really good question. And like I said, I am still a pretty new writer myself, but I think in some ways that I'm in a good position to give advice to newbies, because I'm still there in some ways. I still consider myself a newbie, and I'm maybe, just one or two steps ahead of someone else who's just starting out. And so I remember very well what it's like to be back there, one or two steps behind where I am now. And my biggest piece of advice is to just do it, just write. First of all, just write. Now, there is a lot more involved. If you're talking about writing a book and publishing a book, there's a lot more involved than just the writing, but don't worry about that right now. First of all, just write. And then, yeah, be aware at the same time that you're going to have to wear two different hats. You're going to have to wear your writer hat and also your publisher / marketer hat. Because if you write a book and then don't know how to get it out into the world so that people can read it, then that's a real shame. And, you're not having the impact that you could have with the book. So be aware going into it that, particularly if you're self-publishing, but really either way, whether you're self-publishing or going with a traditional publisher, you're going to have to do a lot of marketing, because even the traditional publishers, they don't really do all that much for you. Obviously, they do some things, and they can help you get into bookstores, into brick and mortar bookstores and things like that. But they expect you to already have a platform and to have a way to reach people. So yeah, doing social media, building a email list, those kinds of things kind of come along with the territory these days, which can be really, really daunting if you've never done any of that stuff before. I know it was definitely daunting for me in the beginning, particularly when I first started my blog, The Nomadic Vegan, and I had never written a blog before and had no idea what I was doing. But I look back now and see how far I've come and how I am actually able to reach people and have a positive impact in their lives, and I am making a difference. And that is such a wonderful feeling. And now it's just a question of scaling up and making that impact even greater. And that's what I'm working on right now. And I have several ideas that I'm looking into and testing out ways to get this book out into the world so that, and get it into even more people's hands so that it can have a bigger impact and help more people and also help more animals. So yeah, my biggest piece of advice for aspiring writers is, if you just be aware that there is marketing involved, unless you just want to write for yourself and you just want the satisfaction of knowing that you finished a book and that you put it out there and it exists in the world. And if that's enough for you and you hate marketing, you hate the idea of trying to sell your book, but you just want to know that your book exists in the world, then okay, go ahead and do it if that will give you the sense of fulfillment that you're looking for. But if you want to, like I said, actually help people and actually have a positive impact in the world, you're going to have to learn how to reach readers, and that involves marketing. So just be aware of that, and just be aware that it's a huge learning curve, and it's a constant learning process that never ends, especially nowadays with all of the technology that changes so fast. It's so hard to keep up with, the latest thing that you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be doing, hey, live stream video, right? Like we are right now. Or there's so many other things, and so many different social media networks that are coming and going. And it can be really overwhelming, but it's also a huge opportunity. We live in such exciting times, we really do, where we no longer have to wait for some gatekeeper to choose us. We can choose ourselves. You don't have to wait for a TV station to decide that they want to give you a show. You just create your own YouTube channel and poof, your show is right there. And then it's up to you to find an audience for it. Or, you don't have to wait for a radio station. You just start your own podcast. And same with writing. You don't have to wait for a publisher to choose you anymore. You can self-publish. And that has only, it was always possible in some fashion. Not always, but it's been possible in some fashion for probably a few decades now. But it's really just in the past 5 or 10 years that it's become so accessible, and it's really the way to go, if you ask me. And for almost anyone, whether you're already a big name or not, it's probably going to be in your advantage to self-publish instead of going with a traditional publisher, as long as you're prepared to do the marketing, which I talked about before. All right, so I think I've answered that one. So the last question that I have that I've already received in advance is, what are you currently working on? And I would love to tell you all about that. This is kind of a funny story because the book that I'm working on now, it's actually probably mostly written already. And I had it mostly written a long time ago. And I eventually decided to put it on the back burner and to focus on Veggie Planet instead. Because I realized that Veggie Planet would have a bigger audience and that it would be able to reach more people. And I just thought it made sense to put that book out first. But the one that I'm working on now is called Italy for Veggie Lovers. And so, as you may have guessed, it is all about traveling in Italy and living and being a vegan in Italy, and also just all about Italian cuisine. Even if you're not traveling to Italy, you'll also get a lot out of reading the book and learn a lot from it, because it's a really deep dive into Italian cuisine and the history of the cuisine, but through a vegan lens, which is a lens that we don't often get to view Italian cuisine through, because unfortunately the way that this cuisine has been exported to the United States in particular, but also to other countries around the world, is very meat and cheese focused. Pepperoni pizza is pretty much the epitome of Americanized Italian cuisine, the kind that I grew up eating. And that is really not what authentic Italian cuisine is about at all. This cuisine, particularly Southern Italian cuisine, is very, very plant-based and very, very vegan-friendly. And it's just full of fresh produce, fresh vegetables and grains and legumes. And it has huge variety. Every region has its own cuisine, really. And some people say that there is no such thing as Italian cuisine because it's just so different depending on which part of the country you're in. So there are 20 different regions in Italy. They all have their own local specialties. And then even diving down another layer, not just by region, but every city, every town, every village just about has its own local dish or its own kind of spin on a popular dish. And so, of course, if you've read Veggie Planet, you know that I did include a chapter in Veggie Planet that's all about Italian cuisine, also through a vegan lens, obviously. But I have a lot more to say on the subject, so I'm going into much more detail in the next book, Italy for Veggie Lovers. And so I do go region by region. I go through all 20 regions of the book, of the country in the book, and tell you a little bit about their history and about some of the local dishes that they're famous for as well. And then I also give practical information about eating out in Italy. I tell you what the different kinds of eateries are. I tell you how to order a coffee in Italy, which coffee drinking is very different there from like the cafe culture that we have in the US. They don't really have that. They just kind of stand at the bar and just swig it down and then go. Anyway, I'm getting a little bit into too much detail. I won't tell you all about it right now, but yes, Italy for Veggie Lovers is the next book that I'm going to release, even though, as I said, that was actually the one that I started writing first, and then Veggie Planet kind of took over my brain, and something told me, you know, this is the one that it would make sense to put this out first. But I can't wait to get back to Veggie Lovers, Italy for Veggie Lovers. So it is, I think, largely written already. I mean, I don't know exactly how long it's going to be, but it's already about the length of Veggie Planet in terms of, you know, the draft that I have written right now. And now I have to go back and kind of fill in a few gaps and maybe update some things. But yeah, that will be out, I'm going to say early 2018. That's about the most specific that I can get at the moment. But yeah, that is the project that I am working on next. And just kind of in tandem with that, you might also be interested to know that I will also be leading a tour to Italy in 2018. So I'm really excited about this. This is something that I'm doing in collaboration with Veg Johnson Journeys, which is a vegan travel company based in the US, and they do tours to destinations in the United States and also in Europe. And so they have asked me to lead their tour to Italy, which is going to happen probably in September of 2018. I don't know the exact date yet because it's going to coincide with the Vegan Fest in Bologna, which is apparently, they claim, the largest vegan event in the world. So it's going to be really fun, and we are going obviously to Bologna, to the Vegan Fest, and Bologna itself is a beautiful city with lots of history, lots of medieval and Renaissance and Baroque, different eras kind of jumbled up together, and the architecture and the history of the city. We'll also be going to Lucca, which is a much smaller town, kind of near Pisa, really beautiful town, that like a walled medieval city. And we're going to Rome, which I don't know if you have heard me talk about Rome before, but Rome is pretty much home to me. It still feels like home more than anywhere else. It's where my husband and I met back in 2001, and then several years later we went back there to get married because that was where we wanted our wedding to be, because it was such a special place and still is such a special place for both of us. And we still try to go back there as often as we possibly can. So, and Rome does have a pretty vibrant vegan scene these days. I mean, even if it didn't, we would already eat really well anyway, because there are plenty of vegan dishes that are just part of the traditional cuisine. But now we also have these vegan restaurants and kind of vegan friendly restaurants that are adding things onto their menu, including not just the traditional dishes that are already vegan, but they're also doing veganized versions of some of the other dishes that traditionally are not vegan. And that's really exciting for me, because when I lived in Italy and in Rome, I wasn't vegan. And so I was eating the other dishes, and now I get to enjoy those again, but veganized, obviously. So yeah, that is really exciting. So Italy for Veggie Lovers, like I said, that will be the next book that will be coming out early 2018. And then later in 2018, I will actually be leading a tour to Italy. So if you would like to join me on that, you are more than welcome to. Veg Johnson Journeys is the company that's going to be doing it. You can contact me either through the contact form on my website, or just send me an email and I can tell you more about it. And I would love to see you there. That would be really exciting. I do have one more project that's already kind of in the works, and that is some kind of guide to the Camino de Santiago. So you may know that I recently walked the Camino across Spain. So I started in Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port, which is a tiny little French village in the Pyrenees Mountains, and then I crossed into Spain, across the border into Spain on the first day, and then continued to walk all the way across Spain for 39 days, 800 kilometers, which is about 500 miles, until I reached Santiago de Compostela, which is where the relics of the Apostle St. James are said to be kept. And so in medieval times, this was a very popular pilgrimage among Catholics. And nowadays, a lot of people do it not just for religious reasons, but also for lots of other reasons, maybe for a more kind of general spiritual reason, kind of going on a spiritual quest, which I would put myself in that category. And then also I was just interested in the history and the architecture and the culture, and just seeing Spain in a different way, because I've been to Spain lots and lots of times before, probably about a dozen times before I did the Camino, but I've never walked through Spain. And so you end up going to places that you never would have gone before if you had been traveling just by bus or train or car or what have you. And yeah, it's just a different way of traveling. And you meet wonderful people, both the Spaniards and the other pilgrims, the people who walk the pilgrimage route are referred to as pilgrims. That was probably the best part for me, was just the connections that I made with really, really wonderful people. The Camino really brings out the best in people. And but I had a lot of people talk to me about being vegan on the Camino. Everyone said, oh, it must be so hard. And I actually met a few other vegans who were walking, and most of them were also actually having a pretty hard time finding vegan food. I was not having a hard time, I have to say. It was really easy for me. But, that's keeping in mind that I speak Spanish pretty fluently. I had already been to Spain about a dozen times, and I'd already written, the Ultimate Vegan Guide to Spain, which is the most popular blog post that's on my blog, The Nomadic Vegan. So I had done all this research already. I knew the cuisine inside and out. I knew exactly which dishes to ask for, and what to look for on the menu, what kind of questions to ask to find out if things were or were not vegan. And I was very pleasantly surprised at just how many options were available to me. But like I said, I met plenty of people who did not have that same experience and who really struggled to maintain a vegan lifestyle, or even just a vegetarian lifestyle. I met vegetarians as well, and at least one of them had gone back to eating fish while he was on the Camino because he just didn't know what else he could eat. So I really want to create more resources for vegans on the Camino and vegetarians on the Camino. And I'm thinking that the book might also be expanded to be a kind of environmentally friendly guide to the Camino de Santiago, because, yeah, to be honest, I'm not sure that a strictly vegan guide to the Camino would have a very large readership. There just aren't that many people who do the Camino, although it is pretty popular. But yeah, limiting it to just vegans on the Camino, I just don't think there would be that many readers out there. So what I would love to do is, obviously still maintain the vegan message within the book, but, kind of market it as a book for people who want to walk the Camino in the most environmentally friendly way possible. And so I would talk about, obviously, diet and the fact that animal agriculture is the #1 cause of climate change and air pollution and water pollution and deforestation and basically all of the environmental ills that our planet is facing. And I would focus primarily on that, but I would also give other tips and advice about how you can lower your environmental impact while you're walking the Camino, because there are definitely several other things that you could do as well. And I think that would have a broader appeal, and it would hopefully expose more people to the vegan message who perhaps hadn't thought about it or hadn't realized just how big the environmental impact of animal products is. So that is something that I'm also looking forward to doing. I've already written a blog post and made a video about being vegan on the Camino de Santiago just because I wanted to get something out there as soon as I could, so that people who were looking for this information could find it. But I want to go into a lot more detail, and I think it makes sense to write a book. It might not be quite as long as Veggie Planet or Italy for Veggie Lovers. We'll see. I might not do it as a paperback this time. That one might just be an ebook, but we'll see. I have a feeling that once I get started, I'll have a whole lot to say, because that is usually the case. So yeah, those are the next 2 things that I'm going to be working on, as far as I know, unless plans change, because I do get new ideas all the time. But I really want to get Italy for Veggie Lovers out there because it has been sitting on the back burner for a long time, and it is mostly written already. So yeah, I need to get that info out into the world. And then some kind of eco-friendly guide to the Camino de Santiago. And then who knows? I've got lots of other ideas after that. So those were all of the questions that I received beforehand. If you want to leave a question in the chat box right now, then go ahead and do that, because otherwise I think we'll probably just wrap this up now. So thank you so much for joining me in this exclusive event. I hope that you enjoyed it. And yeah, if you haven't reviewed Veggie Planet yet, then please do so. It would really help. Reviews are so helpful for just getting more exposure for the book and helping the book to find its readers, and helping people to trust the book and to trust me, and to, it shows that it's a reliable source of information if other people have already read it and given their thoughts on it. So I'd really appreciate it if you could do that on Amazon or also on Goodreads, goodreads.com. If you want to go over there and leave a review, you could do both if you wanted to. You can totally leave them on both places. All right, that's it. So thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you next time. Bye.